All Brown here for Severe MMA, and I'm here with the new Cage Warriors light heavyweight champion, James Webb. James, how are you doing, brother?
I'm very well, Paul. Thank you. Really well. I want to firstly apologise for last week. I was meant to be in with you after some VT work with Cage Warriors, and I literally messaged you and I was like, mate, 15 minutes okay? I went up to the room. I heard from Chris about 10 minutes later. I thought I'll go quickly catch him, and then that was it. And then I was like, battery died, got back to the hotel, saw the message. I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot. Literally,
I know how it
shambolic, but
goes, man. I
very
know how it
sorry.
goes backstage or in Fighter Hotel in the couple of days in the lead up to those events. There's a lot going on. And I was actually saying to you, because we were going to speak fight week, you had got back to me earlier in the week, and I said, look, I don't usually speak to people this close to the fight because obviously you guys have to cut weight and blah, blah, blah. But you were kind of saying, nah, I'm not too stressed about it. I don't have too much weight to cut. So,
Nah, I
um,
didn't.
you
Pretty
you ended up having a pretty good week overall. You didn't have to go through a torturous weight cut. You had an amazing fight, and you've come out of there with your second Cage Warriors world title. How was the
Yeah.
whole experience of last week?
Um, yeah, so like do you know what? I got some really good advice um, from Tom Aspinall, who said it to me about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. He was like, enjoy every moment, take it in. It's not going to be here forever. And I've heard it a few times. I have heard that advice, but just him saying these words, like, like, take it all in, enjoy it all. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to enjoy every moment of fight week. I didn't try and get stressed about anything. That's why I was up for the chat as well, because I was like, I'm just in a good I'm in a good place, having a good time. Like, how lucky am I to be doing this? And that's sort of that mindset, the mindset I've adopted. Like, I'm fortunate to be doing this. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's how I took it. So I had a great fight week. I didn't have a lot of weight to cut. Like, I had a lot of weight to cut as a middleweight, but I walk around at like between 102 and 104. That's where I am. And so it's a bit too much for middle. I feel like it does take it out of me. I focus more like too much on food then. Where light heavy, I'm just enjoying life. I'm enjoying my training, enjoying my family life again, which is something which takes a bit of a hit when you're cutting weight. Like you can't enjoy meals together, etc. So the whole fight week for me was just phenomenal. I was taking pictures every day just to like look back on, because I knew one day fucking I say one day, I was looking back the day after the fight, but I look back and enjoy that, and I just enjoyed fight week. I enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the weigh-ins to the hydration. Like, we all come back to Colchester after weigh-ins. I got Chris. I said to Chris and Tom, I was like, boys, do you mind if we leave London and come home? I want to come home. I live like 40 minutes away. So we all got on a train back home. We all had food around where I am from. Like, it was just easier being around my family. I could just enjoy that. And then, took it into fight day, enjoying the whole day's preparation. I was with my family in the morning. I had breakfast. I then got to catch up with Chris. We headed into London. Me, Chris, Tom, Modestus, Adam, my S&C coach from the ISI. We was all together, great energy, everyone just enjoying it, bouncing off each other. Not even like we were going to fight, just like it was a day out almost, And then to the venue, still just enjoying things, I think I even had a little sleep. One thing I've realised what I think is good for me is shutting off. Yes, buddy? I don't think I've seen the Stegosaurus or Triceratops, but I'll help you in a minute look for them, okay? Um, so I went to the hotel, back to the, sorry, not to the, I went to the venue, had a little sleep, and that's what I realised I quite enjoyed. Is almost like I went to the O2 and sort of disengaged from the fights that were happening, and I just sort of shut off from the world. Like, I didn't want to pay attention to the fights. I was just sort of in my own zone, in my own bubble, and all that was happening that night was I was just fighting. And that's how I treated it. And it was a great experience, you know what I mean? And I enjoyed my performance. Like, recently I've been performing a lot better. I've been showing people recently like what people have been saying about me for years, and people have been saying, like, speaking highly of me, and I don't really have a showdown. And I've recently started to show people like this is what this guy is about. Do you know what I mean? And I think I should have good account of myself on Friday night. There was some things I was disappointed with. I actually was disappointed after the fight, it took me until watching it back to like be like, okay, it wasn't that bad. There was a few things I was a bit upset with, but um, overall, on top of the world, Paul, on top of the world.
And it was a sensational fight. I mean, I was watching it live, and it was one of those where it kind of pulled you toward the edge of your seat. There was a lot of ebbs and flows to it, and I suppose, like you're speaking there about enjoying the fight. When you look back on a career, and I mean, you've had plenty of like big moments. Obviously known for now winning two Cage Warriors World titles mentioned, but this will surely be one of those that you're going to look back on and go, "Yeah, God, that was a mad one that night." That because the drama that had just unfolded over the course of the three full rounds. We were
Yeah,
all on the edge of the seat, and I'm sure it was pretty stressful for the three guys in your corner too.
yeah, yeah. I'd say it was. I and what a great corner I managed to get there. Like very privileged to have Chris and Tom still there. Chris and Tom are, they're my head coaches. They're my guys. And then to have Modestus as my third man in there, he's a guy that I've spent a lot of my year with, and we spent a lot of time together and trained together. And I love that man. He's a great fella, great guy. Love being around him, love learning from him, love being around him and his dad. And I just felt, like I said, I was like, what an opportunity I've got to fight. But like when I'm sitting there looking at my corner, I was like, I'm in good company here. I'm in very good company. And so the fight, yeah, it was a good fight. I enjoyed the fight a lot. There's some moments I'm not too happy about, but I got to show a little bit of a different side of my game. Obviously Andy's a good grappler, and he came to grapple, and I just feel like maybe people can start appreciating my level of grappling now. Like I've, I'm. I know how good my grappling is. I actually believe I'm one of the best grapplers to ever set foot in a Cage Warriors ring. Like I honestly believe I am. I think I'm one of the best grapplers that have been on that roster. And I still show a very good account of my wrestling and my takedown defense and my control and my ground and pound, which is something that we worked on. So there was a lot of positives. I was a little bit upset about getting taken down, but I feel like I defended a lot more takedowns than I actually then ended up getting taken down with. He picked me up quite big at the start with, and I knew that wasn't getting finished just from how I defended it straight away. Like, you probably in the moment don't see it, but as he lifted me, I was already hooking inside his leg, knowing that he can't take me down. I'm going to end up on my feet, and the best that he can do is turn the corner and be around my legs, which that wasn't a problem. If you look at like how I was sitting against the cage, I was fairly calm. Looking back, it was because I was calm. Like I've been in this position for years of my life now, years of my life where I've been in these positions, which ain't great, but become comfortable with, and that fight sort of ended up being more of a war of attrition, and I work something I've really prided myself on, and it would have come through Chris was my S&C, and it's just another level I took it to. Like my S&C coach has literally like dedicated his life, I'd say, the last sort of 3 or 4 years to my progress itself. Um, and so like if it comes to like a war of attrition, I'm not losing that. Do you know what I mean? I ain't losing that. Like I ain't quitting. If I'm I'm gonna have to be put out to quit, and I think that come through. Like I said, I was the one who was still there at the end, and Andy. Not that Andy wasn't there; he was there. I think he pretty much gave everything into it, and I was giving everything to it. It wasn't like I didn't have another fucking 2 or 3 gears left. We were both on fumes, but I was the stronger man. Let's say, I had it. I knew I had that, and um, there was some great corner in there from Tom. Come the end there to like put the hooks in properly. Like I dived on the back previous to that, which was that was me getting a bit fucking horny. You see it and you're like, fuck, I've got this, and then slid off and fuck's sake. And then Tom had some great advice there, which ended up getting like the security and the mount, and then the ground and pound finish. So a good fight, a good great experience.
You're speaking of the corner in there, and it's noticeable there down the home stretch of that third round. Both of you did look like you were both sort of pretty spent. It was one of those wars where neither guy was taking a back foot. You were throwing the kitchen sink at each other, and that's what I suppose made it so exciting. But there was a noticeable just reach down into the depths of your own gut to find something extra. You could see it when you know, I could hear voices coming out of your corner, urgent, you know, calling instructions, and you still found that little bit extra. You must have been very proud that you were able to do that when we're clearly both at almost at that same stage of fatigue and exhaustion. You were able to draw something out of there to get yourself over the line and get that finish rather than just riding out that round.
Yeah, do you know what? And I heard Chris say that recently. He was like, you know, like we could have rode that round out. Um, and you're probably right. I would have rode that round out, and I would have come out into round four. And I'm not sure how Andy would have been round four, but I would have been there. But it just, again, I think it speaks volumes of the quality of the coaching there, especially from Chris. Like there was about, I think it was probably about less than 20 seconds left once I established the mount. And Chris was, I could remember him saying, keep throwing. And obviously the shots aren't too big that I'm throwing. And they're sort of here because he's still on his forearm. If you look at the fight, he was on his forearm. So there's a lot of danger for me there. Like if I threw big and he sort of dropped to his shoulder, I could have come off of him, you know? So like you can't throw too big there. I had to wait until he sort of like had enough of being hit and went down, you know, which he then did. And once he then went to being flat himself, you saw both hands come in. And then once he turned his head towards me, my right hand hit the mat, and I could hear Chris just saying, keep throwing, keep throwing. I could hear Rich Mitchell as well telling Andy to like show him something. And then once them big left hooks started coming in, and they did, they were coming in, then I knew that was the sort of the end. That's why I started to really start throwing them like last 4 or 5 shots to try and put some emphasis on like the damage I was causing, because he was covering there. That's not, you know, it's not, they weren't cleanly landing, but it's not intelligent defending. And I knew that must be, you know, near the end. I didn't know how close to the end of the round it was. Um, you know, I still probably, you know, like, do you know what? I'm never looking at the clock. I'm not thinking about the clock. Like, I've watched the fight back a few times, and there's times where I'm like, fuck me, it's only 30 seconds left. Where in the fight, I remember just thinking, right, let's go again. Let's move again, you know, on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing, instead of thinking about the time. So I didn't know how long was left, but I'm grateful I got it done, you know. I'm really glad I got it done. It was a great finish against a very good opponent as well, you know, and that's another thing, you know, like Andy's he's a fantastic opponent, you know, he's a he's a good champion. Do you know what I mean? He's a great champion. He had a great record. He's beat good guys. He's been around, and you know, it's a great win for myself as well. You know.
Yeah, and like I've stood beside Andy, I've talked to Andy. He is he's an imposing guy, you know. He's like a lovely guy, but you know, he's a serious, solid athlete, a serious fighter. You were speaking there about, you know, reaching down and pulling something extra out of the bag, just finding that extra drive to finish the fight
Mm.
rather than riding out the round. Obviously, there's good cornering involved in that. There's good fight IQ involved in that, like you mentioned there. You know, listening to the ref, giving him instructions gives you that extra spur. How much of it would you attribute to the change in weight classes? Maybe having that extra gear when you most need
Um,
it, when you're fatigued.
the last, yeah, I mean, there's been since like I had knee surgery back in 2021, and that's when I started taking like my training a bit more seriously. In regards to like powerlifting, I know Chris has just got into powerlifting, so I started getting into powerlifting. And middleweight, I always felt fit, but I started to get like not never too big for the weight I've made middleweight. It just started to become a bit of a chore. And I think what happened at middleweight, I was just taking a bit too much out of myself. Like I was only doing really the same cuts as Chris would be doing when he would make a middle, but they were just hurting me. Like, you know, like shot resistance, cardio. You know, like it's gone out the door. And I don't know if that's in the mind as well, but because I haven't had to worry about weight, I haven't had to worry about um, any of that. I just have just been getting on the training. So, like I said, I don't know if it's just a placebo thing where I think I'm doing better than I am and I'm fine. Um, but yeah, like it's been a huge difference. Like what I mean, fighting against light heavies does take it out of you anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like he's a big guy, and when you're grappling, like the way we were grappling, like, I'm telling you, like there's not a lot of guys that are getting 3 rounds into grappling like that either. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of exchanges. Do you know what I mean? A lot of different scrambles, a lot of different attacks. Um, I just feel like the weight class having that less stress of cutting the weight has just enabled me to be a better version of me. Um, like I haven't really had to think about my fitness, but like the conditioning, the S&C I'm doing wouldn't be too far different to what we used to be doing. How I was performing in middle isn't too far of how I'm performing now. Do you know what I mean? So I just think it's probably taking less out of the body has enabled me to recover better or to be better. Do you know what I mean? Instead of cutting 10 kilos, I'm cutting fucking 2.5, 3. And I think that does make a difference to your cardio, but mainly your shot resistance. And over like over the last sort of 3, 4 years, there's been a few fights I shouldn't have really probably been in, and I should have been smarter to look back and not going into them for certain reasons. But um, even going back to like the Aliou fight when I fought him in Colchester, like that was probably one of the biggest cuts I'd have done to then. And I got knocked out in the first fucking round. You know what I'm saying? Like, and like with shots that like I should be able to take. Do you know what I mean? Like shots I should be able to take. So I just think the weight class has done me a favor in terms of like what I can do, but also how much I can withstand as well. So I'm happy that I've made that decision. Um, and like I said, it wasn't a decision that was because I'm being lazy. I've been at middleweight. I've been fighting like between 81 and 84 kilos since like 2011, 12. So it's been a long time I've been at that weight, and naturally over time I've grown and I've got bigger, and actually more than anything, my training got more serious. You know what I mean? Like I look before fucking 2020, Paul, I used to just be a pisshead. Like, and that is literally what I was. Like even within this town, even the town and the city I'm from, like I'd be out fucking every weekend on the piss. And that's probably the best thing I can take away from COVID. It locked me down, and I switched the fuck on. And here we are. Do you know what I mean? I can't believe how well I've done in my career, considering I'd be out. Like, I was out on the piss fucking with Chris the week before I fought Marcin Prosco. Do you know what I mean? I remember that. We was in fucking the old schoolhouse having drinks because I wasn't sure if I was getting an opponent, and he got his fight got cancelled because of the beast from the east. If you remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, "Fuck it, we're drinking." So I was fucking drinking. Then I'm fighting 6 days later, and just silly things. So I'm glad I'm where I'm at now. I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's one long learning curve. With the weight change thing, when you see people go up in weight, what you'll often see, like historically in MMA, is guys might kind of get better the more times they fight at that new weight. Like they don't instantly perform to their best. Like I'm thinking the likes of maybe Dustin Poirier, or even when
Yeah,
Jose Aldo went down, they take a couple of fights to get used to the whole process of making that new weight limit before
yeah,
they actually start to maybe find their best. And obviously, you had a good start your light
yeah,
heavyweight debut earlier this year, but this was against a better standard of opposition, and
yeah,
it brought more out of you. You see
yeah.
yourself, obviously, you see yourself staying at this weight class, judging by what you're saying. But
Yeah.
where do you see yourself going as regards your fight career going forward from here?
Um,
Have you even thought that far ahead, or are you just enjoying the moment right now?
I haven't actually thought that far, Paul. Like, I'm pretty content right now with a lot of things, and I'm pretty happy. A lot of the reason why I think a lot of us are fighting is we're fighting our own demons, and um, we have our own battles in our head, and I think that a certain type of person then ends up getting into fighting, and right now, I don't. The bully in my head's quiet, and I've spent a long time in this sport, whether or not I've not spent a long time within MMA and under the bright lights, as you'd say. I haven't been under the bright lights, but I've spent a long time in the sport. I spent a long time training. I had a jiu-jitsu career that I was doing before. I was fighting even kickboxing before. Um, and I'm at this place mainly, mate, where I have a gym, I have a business. And my gym's doing, well, not well in terms of I'm a fucking the next David Lloyd. It's doing well in terms of the guys that I've got coming through. I've created 2 amateur champions this year on Cage Warriors Southeast, and I'm very proud of that. And not just that, obviously, I'm a father as well, you know. So I'm not a professional athlete that is fortunate enough to be able to not be able to work. I have to work and I have to provide for my family alongside my own training. Um, and yeah, like I'm just content right now because I feel like I need to just give a little bit back to my family, you know. And I never did this for money. Never did fighting for money. It's not about money. Do you know what I mean? We're not making what people think we're making. You know, certainly I'm not. So it's never been about money for me. It's just I'm at a point now where I feel content. I've achieved probably more than I thought I could achieve. The gold box in my head has always been wanting to get to the UFC, and that would have been something that I'd have probably berated myself with or bullied myself with if I didn't get there. But for what I've achieved and the way I've been performing recently, and for sort of the people in my corner right now, um, I feel happy and like haven't thought about fighting. Like, you know, I haven't thought about fighting at all. Not that I'm not interested, but I'm not interested at the moment. You know, like I want to commit to my family. I want to commit back to my business and my fight team. I know mummy's here, and yeah, and then we just see what happens. You know, see what happens, and just enjoy a bit of this. You know, like I've spent a long time in camp. I've spent a long time away from home this year, and I had a child 9 weeks ago, and I didn't. I had a child 9 weeks ago, and after fucking 3 or 4 days, I was gone. You know, and that's something as a man. Even though you've got a job you're doing, you sort of feel different about yourself. You know, I feel like there's a little bit of me that dislikes a bit of me. You know, and so right now, like, fuck fighting. Priority is my family, and to spend a bit of time with my son and my daughter and my fiance. You know, and yeah, and we'll see what happens.
Well, look, with a new kid in the house, and now a little bit of downtime for you to actually be present and enjoy it, I'm sure you're going to take full advantage of that. Congrats
Mm,
on a massive, massive week last week, a huge achievement. As I said, that's
thank you
going to be
so.
a fight that you can be proud of. You can look back on in years to
Yeah,
come.
yeah.
Can't wait to see you in action again. But for right now, just enjoy it, brother.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that, Paul, and I appreciate your patience with me as well, man. Because last week was shambolic.
No worries, no worries. We got there in the end. And look, lots of people get
uh,
to interview fighters right before they fight, but like
yeah,
I think it's nice. I like the opportunity to speak to someone after maybe what's going to be a career highlight fight. It's
yeah.
nice to actually sit down and get your thoughts on the whole thing a few days removed from it. So thank you so much for your time. Look at that big shine belt.
No
That's a beaut.
problem. That's a beaut. Two of them. I'm actually cage warriors don't know this yet, but I'm keeping this, so
Ian
I'll
will
get
be
it.
happy with that. I'll text Graham and let him know.
Yeah, you let him know. Thank you, Paul. I
Cheers,
appreciate your
brother.
time, man. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank
All the
you.
best.